Welcome back to Capturing the Intangibles, where this week it's me and my good friend Massimo getting a little bit geeky on the economics behind shared technology strategies and how it's influenced our development. Michelangelo dives into some whiteboarding, so be sure to check it out on YouTube. But jokes aside, it's damn good stuff. Enjoy. All right, awesome. Welcome back to another episode of Capturing the Intangibles podcast. Massimo, how you doing today? All good?
All good. Waiting for the results, right?
Oh,
In Europe, we talk about it many times, and we can't believe that it takes so many days to get some voting. I mean, maybe some bad system, some bad data, but it's really like even in a country like Italy, you can get all the results back in one day. So here in Europe, we are pretty amazed that it takes so long.
yeah. It's frustrating to us too. But hey, we can talk bad about it. You can't. Okay. That's what
I will wait.
Just
I will
yeah.
wait for the results then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so absolutely. No, good this evening here. So we're ready for some good talk today, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about what was the main topic we wanted to stress or go into deep dive, and we kept coming back to this concept of we're going to call it the economics of building shared technology. Now, on the surface, that feels like a complicated term, but what we're going to explore is what is the validity or rationale and perhaps even market potential of multi-purpose technology. And maybe to make it more clear, we see it as there's several pure play technologies out there in the market, but is there something to a shared ecosystem that delivers better results? And what are the economics behind that? How does it make sense? And I think we have a really interesting perspective there. And as we go throughout this session, for our listeners who may not be joining us on YouTube or the video stream, Massimo, I think this is a great opportunity to maybe bring in a little bit of a whiteboarding session to sort of draw these out, because I think the visual exploration of this is going to give it a lot more meat. It's actually going to tell a visual history of N4OS and why we think this is so important. But Massimo, let's open it up, and I want to ask you, how would you describe or how would you define this shared technology concept?
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very interesting, right? So when you are in an environment where you have multiple applications, right? Or even in the new world of microservices, when you build a lot of microservices, um, each application of microservices need to have some common functionality, right? And so when you build it, you want to build it in such a way that you build it once and you reuse it for different microservices or different applications. So take a look at, for instance, the automotive industry, right? The automotive industries, they are doing that already for decades. So they're consolidated brands, like you take it Volkswagen, and then inside the Volkswagen family, you have Audi, you have Porsche, you have Bentley, you have Seat. And so when you build similar cars, let's take an SUV, that could be an Audi, Q7, or you take, a Porsche Cayenne, or even the Volkswagen Touareg. They are similar cars. So what you do in the automotive industry, you build shared components, right? And those shared components, when you finally assemble the final car, you will take pieces of those components and reuse it, right? So, and that economics is really very profound, where now, instead of having every single application or every single microservice building that functionality, now you build it centrally. You almost you have a 1/10 of your cost, efficiency into your portfolio. So let's say you have 10 applications, you have 10 combinations, you have a shared component, and let's say it costs you $100 million to build it. Now, because you have shared, it's going to go down to $10 million. That's really the big economic model that you're going to get, right? And the economic model for the customer is that they don't need to, as they take applications, now every application comes with their own stack and with their own capabilities. They need to have different people and different skill set to maintain, implement, and improve it. Now, for an IT or CIO, they just need to have one set of experts to implement and to maintain and to keep it, current. And so the economics doesn't isn't not only for the software vendor, but it's also for the customer and that implements, because the uniformity of the software is there for regardless the app that you're implementing, right?
Yeah, so it's almost like let's take it in the commercial space. The car example is great. It's not just the raw materials; it's the implementation aspect and the support and the maintenance aspect of all that. It's compounded. It's compounded economics, and in the software space, it's really no different. It's no different for us. And I
Yeah.
think as we progress about this conversation, it's really interesting our history and how we've built something like this and the rationale behind it and the economics for us and how that's now translating into our customers and otherwise. But let's start with how do you start? How do you start something like this? And this gets into our history, but our history is what has pushed us into being big believers. So this isn't just like a necessarily a free thinking aspect. This is we've done this in practice and seen the benefits. So maybe this is a good opportunity for you even to kind of draw out our architecture and our decisions. But how do we start? You know?
Yeah, so that's very good question. So let me show you on the board, what we are talking about, right? So from our perspective, this is an info perspective. We wanted to go to market by industry, right? So that means that you will have at the core an ERP engine, right? An ERP engine, and with that ERP engine, you will surround the ERP engine with edge application. This could be a CRM, an EIM, or a supply chain, HCM, financials. So you assemble this, what we call in our terms, a cloud suite, and you will go to market and sell this cloud suite to the customer. And this could be for a suite for manufacturing or distribution, right? But we would have another ERP engine with the same, edge application, but this suite is now optimized for a different industry, for the process manufacturing, for instance, right? And so if you do that, if you have that, when you give this to the customers, you want to make sure that this comes out as a uniform solution, right? So it's not coming with 6, 7, 8 applications, because then it's really very difficult to consume. And you want also the solution to be integrated. So what we started years ago, 10 years ago, as a I would call it first phase, is to have the front end and the back end integrated. So we will have a portal and we'll have integration. And then we'll have the applications inside apps. So the apps will integrate to each other, right? So we'll go through the integration engine and we'll integrate. While from a portal perspective, we have one single point for the end users to go to log in, to sign on, one single sign on and user management, and then one common menu where you could go and navigate to different application screens. So that's actually where we started.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And what's interesting there is when you describe things like integration or the front end, the portal. So we're talking security, we're talking SSO. And then I think as we grew, we saw, oh wow, we're seeing true economic benefits and a better user experience for our customers by building this centrally. And we started with Ion with integration, quickly moved into security with UX. Then we started layering in things like document management. And how important
Exactly.
is that? It's like the unsung hero that we might have to have a separate podcast on, because maybe
Exactly.
it doesn't get its credit. But now look at even now what we consider common, and maybe common is the wrong word, but a central technology being things like AI and ML,
Exactly.
or data fabric technologies. Those are exactly where we're progressing our strategy. Now,
Yeah.
what's interesting here is you hear a lot in the market of things like cloud platform or cloud platform services. There's a difference here, right? If you have the services, a lot of people have these services, whether it's a pure play vendor or it's a ERP vendor that has these services. The difference is the constant wiring, right?
Exactly.
So it's
Exactly.
always connected, and it creates this ecosystem, or maybe call it a composition platform. That's how it's differentiated. And I think our history has caused us to do this for the benefits of Infor, but now we're seeing that we're seeing that transition because others can reap the exact same benefits, other than it being simply a pure play decision at any point in time. But now,
Absolutely.
since we're talking about this wired nature of it, I'm curious your perspective. Is that complex for customers to really think about, or what's this loosely coupled mentality? Do customers think about, oh, they're providing me all these services, that puts it in a risky spot if something happens to one, or how does it upgrade and all these different things? So what's your perspective there?
Yeah, so look at this, our architecture. The beauty of that is where you have an integration engine, you have the apps, right? So you could have the same edge apps, but the ERP engine is different. So as you define the business process, you know, you can literally, assemble a suite where the ERP engine is one for the distribution, but maybe in another assembly, the ERP is different while the edge application is the same. So we had done that work big time, to make sure that no matter what we assemble, it keeps working. And even in the upgrade, when we upgrade the software, of course, we have work on zero downtime, so there is no impact to the customer. But essentially, we can upgrade the CRM without impacting the ERP, or we can upgrade the entire integration platform without impacting the business process, right? But I think it's also very important to discuss where, you know that after we did the portal and the integration, the other thing that we did, which was very important for us, is to take all the data that we had in the business process and in the applications, and we put this in what we call the data lake, right? Because that is where developers and architects and at the end of the day the users will have one single view of the data for that suite of applications. And remember, I'm talking about suite of applications, but take a more modern application where you have thousands of microservices, right? Thousands of them. So the challenge is how you're going to bring everything together, both from the end users and both from a business process. And that's actually what we have solved here with this concept. And then going back to your concept, like, okay, but then I can have a portal like SharePoint. I could have an integration platform, IBM. I could have a data lake for another vendor, right? But the thing is that the wiring, having this technology attached here, these technologies attached here, these technologies are also connected here.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're coming with something that works out of the box, is aware of each other, and take advantages of each other, and has almost like a mutual beneficiation of, yeah, I'm using the portal for my screens, I'm using the integration for my data lake, I use the data lake for my applications, right? So it's really, you know getting the multipliers of beneficials of all this. And then we went from the data, right? And then from there, we didn't want to do the classical use cases like analytics and reporting, but of course we went to straightforward to AI. And why is it AI important? Right? It's not important because of edge usage, I'm doing something outside. No, we want AI to be brought back to the business process, to be embedded and really improve our next generation business logic. You can only do this if you have a wired platform, a wired technology.
Right. And I think there's what you're hitting on is all these little red connection points, right? And
Mm-hmm.
think about it not just from the three you have on the screen, but the thousands of
Mm-hmm.
microservices.
Oh
The
yeah.
the nuances to being able to handle that, to create this, call it futuristic platform that sort of pushes your business into the future as you go, right? Because you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to worry about these sort of things. Those things are
No.
so hard. And that's why, we are uniquely different in that I don't think we had this vision 10 years ago. We
Mm-hmm.
we organically built this as the result of the Infor strategy, And I think it's fantastic. And I do. I think we're a leader in this sort of
Hmm.
space that I think we're going to see a big market turn on something like this. But I
Yeah.
have to ask, since we're talking about, I don't think, our strategy has changed over 10 years for the better. If we had to start over from scratch, would we do it the exact same way? Would we do it different in a different order? What do you think?
Yeah, that's actually a very good question because if you look at what we have developed, what we are today, we have a portal service, right? We have a security service, we have an integration and an API service. We have a data lake service or data fabric service with a data lake. We have an AI service. We have a platform as a service, PaaS service, and we have a lot. We have a document management. We have all kind of frameworks, right? But here is the thing, Rick. I think if I would restart today, probably yes, I would do the portal still and the integration because you need to bring that uniformity to the end users and from the business process. But probably I would have jumped also to having a pass and AI together. And here is why is the reason because if we want to build the next gen microservices or application, you want to infuse natively that AI models, that intelligence in the new apps, right? We didn't have, yeah, we had some AI maybe 10 years ago, but it was not really a big focus. But now, if you rebuild a new app, you need to put that embedded intelligence in it. And if you hard code, the world of hard coded business logic is gone essentially. And the
Hmm.
world of rules engines is also gone because, okay, you configure, but it's still hard configuration, right?
Right.
What you want is a trained brain that tells you to go left and right and what's next, and that will be the next gen business logic in the business applications. And so
That's
that's
interesting.
I think what I would start today if I would redo that again. But hey, we ended up there, so we have learned that I think we've been very very focused, but also very flexible to see the trends and then adjust to the trends and move on as well. So that was
Yeah,
really
and
good.
let's talk about the AI aspect for just a second. Like we keep going back to the management of this cloud infrastructure that we know everyone's going to have to move to, right? Like it
Hmm.
is the future. If you look at something specific like AI, there are so many pieces to that project that require different technology. It's not that I can go off and look at an ML engine and expect that to be all I need. So that's
Hmm.
why I think we consider it core to this sort of composition, technology composition aspect, because you're going to need the integration. You're going to need the data management aspect. You're going to need,
Hmm.
by the way, the security model across everything, not just for AI, but a consistent security model that you can trust and only have to basically set up once. You're going to need the API management for extensibility on how I consume and use that. You're going to need how do I get that into a business process or workflow, or how do I create the entire automation, or how do I create new applications for my IT team to develop and develop quickly and use these sort of insights or visualize in whatever visualization engine that you have. It's
Absolutely.
difficult. It's very difficult. So that's why we
Yeah.
see so much value in this core, I think.
Yeah, but let me show that to you, Rick, in a moment. What you were just saying, which is very interesting. Let's say that I don't want to have a wired application or a wired technology or platform, and I'm going to a best of breed of strategy. So let's say you take an AI vendor and an AI platform, and so that's my box there, ML, right? Machine learning. Okay, then how do I expose my machine learning model in order that it's consumed, right? So I need an API. Therefore, I need to go and buy an API gateway, right? Okay, then go ahead, buy another other API gate, which is a different vendor, maybe with a different roadmap, with different pricing model, different challenge. You have to do your own integration. So let me draw you the blue ones. Things all this connection. Why do you have to do your own, right? So okay, now your ML model is consumable, but how did I train the ML model? That means that I need to point to some data sources, and this data is residing in business applications or devices that you may have or documents that you may have somewhere in your infrastructure. So how do you get from these data sources to the ML model, right? That's the big question, because that's what you were saying. You have an integration issue. There you go. Let's take a data management platform with an integration platform. So maybe you need an integration platform different than APIs probably, and then you need a data management platform or data fabric platform. And now you have to purchase these things. Guess what? You know, you have to do your own wiring, all wiring, and these are all integrations because you have to build all this custom integration. So you think you buy ML and you can start your ML project in 1 week. That's not going to happen in reality, right? And well, it can happen if you would have a platform that is wired already for you so that you can focus on that use case. That's
Yep.
exactly what you were saying, Greg.
Absolutely. And let's say the integration bus, let's call it, has to go
Mm-hmm.
through an update of some sort. And it's
Yeah.
just something so small. What happens to your connection to Data Lake, right? Is that hard to manage? Yeah, it's potentially hard because you've got two separate vendors that I mean they've got no relation, right? So now you have to
Yeah.
manage the update. It's almost like you're heading backwards into an on-prem scenario. That management aspect of it, I mean, it becomes so real again.
Exactly. The spaghetti architecture that we had on premise, Rick, if you don't have such platforms, you are moving that spaghetti architecture to the cloud. It's inevitable. With
Here
even
come here,
with even worse scenarios. Yeah, I had to do, as a good Italian.
your food scenarios. I love it.
But remember, people are pitching maybe that a lasagna, a layered architecture is better. Actually, not. But there's going to be another podcast of layered architecture, spaghetti versus lasagnas. We'll
Yeah,
talk about that in another podcast. But so
perfect,
this
perfect.
wiring that is done for you is so valuable. Yes, you can upgrade the ML model, the API gateway, without impacting the others, right? So the other
Yeah,
pieces, and if your vendor has a zero downtime, then you not even notice it, right?
yep.
So that's very valuable.
And we build and connect all these things so that when we create updates in our multi-tenant cloud to this single image, it's
Hmm.
with respect to everything in the chain, right? So
Hmm.
this is I mean, call it smoke tested for you so that every scenario there is no what do we call it? Transformative uplift or change. No real, it's always additional value, right? That's what we're talking
Exactly.
about, not having to manage that. So
Exactly, absolutely. And actually, the mutual benefits we were talking about. Oh, we need to have the machine learning model. It needs to be retrained, right? So we need to have a scheduling capabilities with the workflow. Um, maybe notify some people that training is going on. So actually, you need a workflow engine even with the scheduler. Well, guess what? That's another technology you need to buy, right?
yep.
And there you go. It's do your own yourself. You
Yeah.
can. I mean, if you have the money, the budget, and the people, you can. But at the same time, you're gonna have what people call a binary concrete architecture. It's just a rock solid house, which is good, but you can't touch it anymore.
Ah, it's a
And
great
you know,
that,
so you can
that's a
touch it
great
anymore,
analogy.
and you're stuck in the past
Yeah, and it's
already.
it's it's actually how we define. We're gonna have to do a podcast on this because I know and we'll bring in some guests on this one. But embedded AI, everyone likes to talk
Hmm.
about embedded AI. We do too, except that our embedded AI is actually abstracted. Now I know that sounds weird, but what you're describing is we've got this composition platform that you can retrain and do all these things so you can touch it so that if you're looking at something else and you say you have embedded ML, it's like your house. How do you change it? How do you update it? How is it then even ML other than just a standard rules engine?
Yeah,
We abstract that away, but to the users, your business consumers, it's got the exact same appeal of being embedded and I can use it when and where I want. And that's a
yeah,
very, very, very powerful model.
yeah. You asked before. I was thinking about, um, if you would start today, what would you do, right? So we talked about, hey, I will put more emphasis on the platform as a service. The SDK, low code, which we have, by the way. and AI, right? So build AI apps or embedding AI logic into our apps. But the other thing I think is very important also, if you will build today, I think you should be able to deploy in multiple clouds as well at some point.
Ah, yeah.
But in such a way, let me show you on the diagram, in such a way that you are not building in a way that you're choosing your low common denominator in such a way that actually you're not taking advantage of the cloud at all. So what a lot of people are doing today, they're, containers is the magic word everybody uses here, Kubernetes, So let's put everything in a container and move container from Amazon, Google, or Azure. But at the end of the day, you're not taking advantage of really scalable services that the cloud provider is giving to you as a developer. And so it's like in the 90s where people were building for Unix, and then Windows NT came and Windows Server. And so do you think that you can take that code and run on Windows NT and server? No, you have to really adjust for better memory management, file management, and so on. In the cloud, it's the same problem in a different scale, but philosophically speaking, it's the same problem. And so if you have this wired technology that we were talking about, wired platform, um, it's also making sure that you have the wired back to the native service, right? So it's not wired between each other like data lake integration and portal, but those services are underneath it uses maybe things like S3, and that wiring we provide, right? So but if you build for multi-cloud, maybe it's better to have an abstraction where then if you run on Azure, it will be aware of running in Azure, and then you take advantage of the storage capabilities that Azure gives to you. So otherwise people will end up building their own storage inside that microservice data lake, but then it's really, yeah, you're not taking advantage of that and the scalability, availability, and the economic model, right? So that's really what we should do also for the next things. Developers should take a look at that as well.
Yeah. I told everyone Massimo was the smartest guy in the room, and I love that he draws the pretty pictures for me because it makes so much more sense, and it's fantastic. And obviously, we're really passionate about this sort of stuff. So, but I want to transition a little bit away from our history because, again, I mentioned this earlier. We're a software company, but it's actually no different. This story is fundamentally no different to any other organization or enterprise, regardless of industry, regardless of what you're doing. We know that your competitive advantage moving forward is your data. So now customers have this same sort of concept that I'm going to need this to get me into the next 10 years. When I purchase software, when I think about projects, you don't need to be thinking about how can I, to your point on the last podcast, just continuously get better on each individual thing. How can I make those giant leaps? We believe that this sort of strategy is a catalyst for those types of giant leaps at the organizational level, so that I can go off and immediately experiment or do something or give more ability to use different components to my users, my evolving workforce, and all those different things.
Absolutely.
And instead of it being reactionary all the time, how do you really plan for the future? I don't really see how you can without an orchestration and a composition platform like this. And we talk a lot about on our team specifically the difference between building blocks and solutions. Building blocks are great, right? Like they appeal heavily to IT, but the business wants solutions. There's a gap there.
It's the components of a car and the car. At the end, people want the car, right? So not per se the components.
Right. So if I can decrease my implementation cost and not look at everything as a one-off project, back to kind of the economics perspective, but build that ecosystem that IT still gets what they need, but be able to act very quickly because it's putting this extra layer on top of the raw materials to now I can just act, I can create. And we talked about the difference between build and create. I think it's such a fascinating, huge area for us moving forward. So I don't know if you have any closing thoughts on that sort of perspective, Massimo, but obviously something that we hold dear.
Yeah, I think that a lot of, I would say, experts always advise take a best of breed, right? Take a best of breed approach, and I think those these years of best of breed is really gone, because people really want to have value, like you said, from the day one, from a business level and solution level, right? And so if you have this wired platform with the solutions, with your microservice, with the application, you're gonna get benefit from day one. If you are going to do a best of breed, even in the cloud with all the limitations, you're gonna be in IT projects for months. Like I was saying in the, take an ML projects, and what kind of technology comes to place to do that. You're gonna be months in project, and the CIO or even the CIO or CFO is gonna come to you and say, yeah, we bought all these technologies, these licenses. I haven't seen any value. Yeah, I've seen maybe a dashboard with a 90 degree Fahrenheit, saying that some devices has 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, that's zero value, not 90 value, not zero value, right? So that's the thing. My closing is, comment is the world of best of breed is gone unless you have money to waste. It's gone. You need to look at these wired platforms and use them.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're looking for things like machine learning type use cases for insights for your analytics, if you're looking at projects like governance, risk, and compliance, or anything around security, if you're looking for new innovative user experiences, you should be planning for that for 5 to 10 plus years. We believe this is really the catalyst for those sort of things, and we're highly passionate about it, and we're going to continue to focus on that vision and strategy moving forward. So,
Absolutely.
Massimo, I enjoyed it as always. Thanks for your insights and your education for me personally. But until next time, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.